10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 221. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 221 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. This is our 5th episode of the month, so we're going to turn this into a little bonus episode on some of the 4th stuff we've talked about. This is just going to be a quick and dirty podcast. I just want to talk about one thing, but I think that this one thing is going to be really helpful for you, and this was something that really helped me when I was coming up as a jazz musician. But first, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to a brand new patron. Thank you to Lisa for signing up to Patreon this week. If you don't know what Patreon is, it is the website that you can go to support this podcast in the form of a $3 donation each and every month. And what that $3 donation does is it gets you a PDF with every single episode that we've ever done. So at this point, that's going to be 221 PDFs. And those range from hundreds of different topics, literally. So if you want to get signed up, support the podcast, get something great in return, you can go to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners and get yourself signed up today. You get instant access to all of that stuff. All right, so today I just wanted to basically talk about an experience I had with one of the best jazz musicians who's ever lived, and that is James Moody. And I think I've mentioned before on the podcast the great opportunity that I had to hang out with Moody when he came up to the University of New Hampshire to play with Clark Terry back when I was in school there. And I got to take a couple of lessons with him, hung out in his hotel room and just kind of played some saxophone. He showed me a mountain of things. It was one of the most inspiring things that I've ever seen was this, man in his late 70s practicing harder than anybody that I've ever met and continuously trying to push the limits on his own playing. I mean, that's somebody right there that could have really rested on his legendary status and his already ridiculous saxophone playing. But he was literally practicing hours and hours each and every day to try to improve. So that right there, before I even get to the meat of this episode, is worth thinking about. But one thing that he taught me that I think is particularly relevant to what we've been talking about this month, which is fourths, is he told me that I should learn the Eddie Harris composition Freedom Jazz Dance, and I should learn it in every key. And that was something that just seemed so crazy to me, so I asked him why. And he said that the interval structure in this tune is so interesting. And he also asked me straight up, he said, have you ever explored the interval of a fourth very deeply? And at the time, I really hadn't. And he said, you've got to have the sound of fourths in your playing if you want to be a modern jazz musician. And of course, years later, I realized he was totally right. But I did spend, honestly, about 6 months after I hung with Moody learning Freedom Jazz Dance in all 12 keys. So what I figured we would do is we would break down a little bit of Freedom Jazz Dance, talk about where some of the fourths occur, and then you could either choose to embark on this journey of learning it in all 12 keys or not. That's totally up to you. That's going to take you a long time and is a pretty monumental undertaking. But what I would like you to do is at least memorize Freedom Jazz Dance in the original key, which is concert B flat. And this is a really interesting tune. So let's talk about this tune real quick. I'm sure a lot of you out there are familiar with this, but maybe some of you aren't. So Freedom Jazz Dance is literally just one chord the entire time. It's a B flat 7 chord. And if you listen to different recordings of this tune, they do switch up that B flat 7 chord. They'll add like a sharp 11 at points. It'll be a sharp 9 sound at other points. But the melody is just so difficult pretty much on any instrument. Like I know on saxophone, it's extremely difficult. The intervals are very wide. It doesn't follow any kind of discernible pattern. So it's a really great tune because you really have to think about what you're playing. And you also have to be very acrobatic on your instrument. So two things that are fantastic for us as musicians. Now, if you imagine trying to take this tune that is so hard to wrap your head around and this melody that seemingly just goes all over the place without rhyme or reason, if you try to take that and you try to put it into all 12 keys, that is one of the most frustrating / amazing and fantastic things that you could ever do for your playing. So let's just break down a little bit of the first line of the melody of this tune. And I think that you're going to start to see where some of these fourths are, and hopefully you can hear it. You've just spent a whole month working on the sound of a fourth. So hopefully right off the bat, when I play this, you're going to hear that there's a lot of fourths, but then we're going to talk about it a little bit more. So here is the very first phrase of Freedom Jazz Dance, extremely slowly. Now let me play that for you one more time. So hopefully you're picking up on some of those fourths that are present in there, but let's actually dive in and talk about a few of them in depth here. So it starts with a fourth, F to B flat, and then it continues with another fourth, B flat to E flat. Now remember, we talked about that. We talked about stacking two fourths on top of each other, and that's exactly what Eddie Harris does here. Now, after he plays those three fourths, he actually goes up a major third, and then he comes down a fifth, but then we hear another third. So on beat 2, we have a C going to an F. Then he comes down a minor third to D. Then he comes down a major third to B flat. Then we see another fourth. We go from B flat to F. Then we see another minor third. But then we jump up to B flat and we actually play two fourths a whole step apart from each other. So we go from B flat to E flat, and then we play A flat to D flat, and then we land on B flat. So you can see there is a whole lot of fourth motion in there. Now that we've broken it down a little bit, let me play it for you one more time. Can you hear all that happening in there? Now imagine playing it a lot faster and actually playing it on your instrument. And what you're going to find is as you go through this tune, you're going to hear and see a lot more fourths. So here's what I'm going to do for you. I am going to write out the melody in a PDF form this week, and I'm going to highlight all of the fourths so that you could dig through there, you can find all of them. And then when you're actually playing that PDF, you're going to actually be able to visually see the fourths as they go by. And then, like I said, your first goal is to just memorize the melody in the key, the original key, which is concert B flat. And then if you're starting to feel adventurous, just start by putting it in one other key and see if you could do it. See if this is something that you want to do. And then eventually, if you really want to take it there, you can bring this around to all 12 keys. But really, consider every other key that you put this tune in a huge win, because this is not easy. And you're especially going to find that out when you get into the third phrase of this tune. It is so difficult. A 4-measure phrase with these wild intervals that jump all over the instrument. So fourths and fifths and thirds are really what Eddie Harris is using throughout all of this. And it's just such a fantastic mix of all those. And I think one of the most iconic and unique jazz standards ever written. So that's it. I just wanted to give this to you as the 5th episode of the month. That doesn't happen all that often. And we sort of wrapped up our series on fourths with our etude already, but that's okay. I figured this would be a cool thing to just kind of give you something new to do at the end of the month here. So I hope you enjoyed it. Remember, you can grab that color-coded PDF at Patreon. Go to 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, get yourself signed up today, and you get instant access to all that stuff. Thank you so much to all the patrons that have done that. We've got over 300 of you, and we couldn't put this show on and keep it going without you. All right, I hope you have a fantastic end of July, and I will see you all in August. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.